stomping animal. Sipping. Pop, bang.
Which was a business relationship between a provider of funds, resources, or services for the
अभी ना जाओ छोड़ कर कि दिल अभी भरा नहीं, अभी अभी तो आई हो, अभी अभी तो
Good evening, everyone. I, Dr. Nilakshi Jain, on behalf of Shine Anchor Kutch Engineering College, Mumbai, India, welcomes you all in hybrid webinar series, Innovative and Emerging Technology in Field of Research. This international webinar series is hosted with total 25 plus national and international collaborators and A special mention of our international collaborator, University of North America. Someone said, if your action inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and to become more, you are a true leader. And today, I'm really greatly inspired by our esteemed speaker's profile. I will call him a true leader, and I know after this introduction, you all will agree with me. He's a scientist, he's a technologist, he's an author, he's a coach, he's a faculty, he's an international speaker, and he's an expert in field of data science, big data, analytics, and emerging technology. He obtained his PhD from IIT Mumbai, Bombay, and MBA from the Pampling School of Business, Virginia Tech. He is also known as the first chief data scientist of the oil and gas industry. He is the technology fellow and chief data scientist at Halliburton, and which is most leading big data and data science initiative at the one of the world largest providers of product and service to the energy industry. A veteran of big data, his unique and innovative approach towards data science has earned him global recognition. His expertise reflects in all aspects of data that works in harmony with business and organizational strategy. In 2018, the Curriculum Intelligence listed him as one of the top innovator for data and analytics. And also in 2018, the DEW Journal, a flagship journal of energy sector, refers to him as the guru of AI, data and analytics. He has appeared as key speaker and keynote speaker at several international conferences and has written co-authored numerous research papers in peer-reviewed journals and magazines. He has co-founded startup in DC and Silicon Valley and is an advisory board member of a startup in healthcare, retail, finance, analytics domain. Agenda Week of the Financial Times listed his name as one of the potential board candidates with emerging technology and analytics expertise. His profile has appeared in many magazines, including Chemical and Engineering News, The Scientist, Silicon India, Oil Review Middle East, Petroleum Review, Rig Zone, and among others. Today, he is going to talk about the importance of avatar in talent in industry 4.0 and digital transformation and big data era. And we are really very privileged that he is going to this talk is going to deliver by multi-talented, dynamic, and sorry to call you sir, handsome and dashing speaker, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi. Sir, I could not resist to call you. So, in this your own avatar, Indian avatar, you are really looking damn dashing. So all please welcome Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi. Sir, stage is yours. Please start the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nilakshi. Thanks for the nice comments and a long introduction. It's difficult to start with that. Let me just pull up my presentation, and so we can actually look at something as well.
Yes, sir.
So I hope everybody is seeing the actual presentation now.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for a very kind introduction and as well as saying good words about me. Yes, over the years, I have realized that it's very important to have your culture adopted with respect, and I moved away from the British trained suit and tie and adopted our own where I come from. So, and has been very, it feels really good actually that you're not you don't have a tie around your neck and you're being choked all the time, you know. So I think everybody should think about their heritage and build their career on it. That's the most important part. All right, so what I was going to talk about is the importance of avatar talent, and I will define what avatar means in my definition. Of course, the word is very common, and of course, coming from India, the avatar is very well known. But let's look at in the modern context, and especially now that we are talking about the era of Industry 4.0, in digital transformation and big data. These are all going on together. So before I go more in detail, I'm going to skip this slide now. And so this is roughly the agenda, like what I'm going to talk about. Like it's a big picture, what's Industry 4.0, what digital transformation is, what are the pillars, why avatar talent, what's the career 4.0 looks like, and everything has to be value creation. So before I start my talk, let me at the onset thank everybody, especially Professor Nilakshi Jain and Shri Kirit Udeshi, who for inviting me to give this webinar. And more importantly, all of you who are listening to me and spending your evening to listen to my talk. And you know, the most importantly, the people who actually enabled me, empowered me, and encouraged me to deliver my experience. That includes my PhD advisor from IIT Bombay, who's Professor Datta on this side, and on the other side is my primary school teacher from Shivsagar, Assam. And I happened to meet them about a year back in Mumbai together because they live now in the same apartment complex. And so I'm very fortunate to be blessed by so many people. And of course, my family, my son who is an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, my daughter who's a college student, and my son tells me, Dad, you are in an outdated industry called oil and gas. Come to Silicon Valley full time, but I live in Virginia. And of course, my wife, who is also from IIT and from Chembur, she's a chemistry teacher. But you know, the thing I present, the work I present, is not just my own work. It's a lot of people have worked with me in the past so many years, and I've been doing what people now call big data, data science for a very long time. Sometimes I feel I retired and then came back to this industry in this space. And of course, my parents, family and friends around the world, as I travel to get good food, I have to go to their houses, and my siblings and families, because they all support me. I have a big family. So these are the people who actually empower me. And my success, most of my success is attributed to my PhD advisor because he trained me to think very differently. That's very important. And since you have already given my introduction, I'm going to skip that. Only will tell you one thing, that my PhD was in theoretical and quantum chemistry. Some people will say what it has to do with oil and gas. I think it doesn't matter. You apply how you transform yourself and keep going from there. It never should be blocked by what you have done in the past. You should always look for what in the future and how do you transform yourself. So let's talk about what's the world happening, like the big picture. Everything, if you look in the history of the universe or the world in the recent past, everything is about energy, right? And currently we are all talking about what is called energy transition landscape. I put this picture on the side. It just shows you that it's very complex. It's not very simple, right? Today, since I work for oil and gas industry, there is a lot of push in terms of solar energy, wind energy, and my PhD was actually in design of solar cells, applying quantum mechanics to what is called how energy is generated in a chlorophyll molecule. So I happen to know that side of the industry as well. I'm also part of a small solar company as well. So I have the full spectrum, and it's very complex. But if you look at just look at the oil and gas industry, and since many of you may be engineering students, these industries go through up and down, and you can see that since 2014, when the oil price crashed, a lot of companies became bankrupt, and the industry lost a significant billions of dollars. And now 2020 has happened, which is OPEC plus disagreement, the COVID shutdown, and industry is still is in a challenged environment. So this landscape, You know, people use a term called unprecedented times, or what you call unpredictable times. I think times have always been unpredictable. So there, I don't know why people want to qualify that, because we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So I think using that word doesn't make sense to me, because we should be always ready to transform what comes tomorrow, right? And in 2014, when this industry started doing big data, I was saying that let's leverage what we have now. But the industry was slow. There are many slow industries, and I think one of the faster industry is like oil and gas, healthcare industry. But let's say hope industries will change and maximize the value. Why is it important? Because we live in what is called Industry 4.0 revolution, and if you have not heard of it in any course or anything, then you should do research on that. And what are the 4 different industrial revolutions? But I summarize this industry revolution in a very simple way. I say as the digital maturity grows, and if you do the right things in this context, then you can actually generate significant economic value. So this picture is independent of the industry. It could be a university, it could be a college, it could be a small business, anything. The main thing is most of the people are in this left-hand side bottom block called data-driven innovation and solution. They are like trying to figure it out how to do it. If I give you a context in education industry, since I also have part in it, how much of data analysis is done? Mostly it's done like how many people got placement and what degrees got more placement. But what have we done to actually saying how valuable those people are in terms of industry that are coming up in the next few years? We haven't actually built a model to predict that, right? And that's why I'm saying most of the things we do is on the data, but I only look at the historical part and very simple KPIs, and KPIs are in many sense outdated. So one has to really look at these things. In order to do that kind of analysis and increase more value, you have to adopt new technologies. And new technologies can be anything, right? I will name some of them in a later stage, but emerging technology, that's the word I like, because the technology keeps emerging from one to another. On the digital maturity side is what are we trying to do? What is any business, doesn't matter. We should be really focused on real-time resource optimization. Now, resource doesn't mean people. It could be product, it could be services, it could be anything that you think is a resource for your business, whether it's a supply chain, whether it's an equipment, right? How do you continuously transform? And that includes you. Can you transform yourself? When you start increase your digital maturity and you adopt new technologies, then you actually go into this phase called disruptive growth. And on this picture, I have purposely put these boxes in a slightly not a perfect square or a rectangle grid, because the exponential value that you get you don't disrupt yourself, then somebody else will disrupt you, whether it is you are a business or whether you are a person. So you have to really think in that way. Can I change? Can I adapt to new technology? Right? And as a result, you can actually think about it. And this is Industry 4.0 in my analysis. You don't have to go and read like thousands of paper, but simplify the term and see how I can actually play with it. And this is what leads to these 3 terms, which leads to this disruption, that is digitalization, and digital transformation. We all know these terms, but we use them very confusingly. They have a very specific relationship in terms of how much value they generate. But most of us, we only talk about digitalization, but not the transformation, because transformation is hard to think. Because who wants to, if you have got a degree in mechanical engineering, you want to take a job in mechanical engineering. You don't want to go and become a chemical engineer, or you don't want to become, after doing MBA, you may want to become a business person. But because you are trained in one area, you do not want to think about other areas. And that is hard. That's why transformation is always hard. But that's the same thing for businesses. They have been doing certain things in a certain way. Even like in academic setting, for example, if you want to develop a new course, it's an uphill battle in many places, because people are saying, oh no, we have been teaching this C++ for last 10 years, 20 years. All our students got job. Why do I teach new languages? So this is a battle that happens everywhere. But focus on that digital transformation. Here is an example. I think many of you may be very young and may not have seen some of these things. On the left-hand side at the bottom, there is a nice blue color box. If it's not very clear to you, it has a big record player and a vinyl record player, and a nice black sheet which has the songs on it. Now, this is probably the first attempt to what is digitizing the voice of the people. But you see the box is so big that the recorded device is very big. It was not very easy to share. Then after a few years, there came Walkman. Some of you may have seen, or maybe not. Then came iPod. Now it became much easier. You can actually go with it anywhere you want. You can probably share. If you had cassettes, you can give it to your friends. But today, where do you live? All of you live in these companies called Spotify, Gaana, iTunes, Amazon Music, and things like that. And you can build your own album, and you can share that album with your friends and family, but you never send a song with it. In the vinyl record case, you have to actually give them physically the record player as well as the vinyl record. In the case of Walkman, you have to actually give them a cassette and a Walkman. On the iPod case, you really couldn't share the files, but you can actually share with a cable the songs, so to say. But today with Spotify, what you do is you just create an album, you press a button, it goes, and your friends can listen to the same songs that you are doing. This is what is a simple way to look at the three terms: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation, and you can see the economic value. So when vinyl records were there were maybe 50 artists and 50 music houses that made money. When digitalization happened in the music industry, iPods were sold in millions, Walkmans were sold in millions. A lot of artists were able to create tape record music on the tape. But today, if you go to the streaming world, you have millions of artists and millions of consumers and billions of dollars. And most importantly, for all of you to think, this actually created significant amount of jobs. In the first phase, few very limited jobs, then more jobs came in. But today in streaming, all these companies employ a large number of people to provide those songs to all of you. So when your digital transformation takes place, number of jobs increase. They may be different kind of jobs, but significant economic value is generated. So how do we define digital transformation is the key part. Right, it is not a buzzword. So anybody who says that, I think they have done nothing in their life, and they just say it's a buzzword, or they don't understand and they don't read, right? And then second part is when they say it's technology, it's not a technology. Transformation is not technology. Technology is an enabler. It's not digitization, because as you saw in the case of music, it was just putting something on a record. Digitalization is a little bit of using that process to create some value. So my definition of digital transformation is that it is the change associated with the application of digital technologies and solutions, or you can call it emerging technology and solutions, across all aspects of business life cycle. Now, business can be education institute, oil and gas industry, manufacturing, it doesn't matter, right? That impacts the development of new business model. So when you look at the music industry, I showed you how business model changed from records to MP3 to streaming operations, so that you actually remain competitive, sustainable, and resilient. So if you know, in India, I don't know if the company still exists, that HMV used to be the company, or T-Series. I think T-Series still exists, I think. But you see, many of those companies are gone, and they have been replaced by Gaana and Spotify. So you have to think, digital transformation is about the business to remain competitive. Now, some might say, oh, we are a big manufacturing company, or we are a big energy industry, or we are a big educational institute. Who can disrupt us? We already seen that, right? Especially when online classes came, educational institutes have challenges. Same thing happened in energy industry. There are many more energy industries now in the renewable sector, and so every industry is open to disruption. So this is, if you go by this definition of digital transformation, then it takes away the technology part, it takes away the buzzword part, and it just says focuses on how to build a business. So these are the 4 pillars of digital transformation. First one I call is big data analytics. And big data doesn't mean lots of data, and I'll tell you in a few seconds. It's about integrating emerging technologies. As I showed example in music industry, everything becomes real time, right? If you are listening to an album, you want to share with your friends in real time. You're not saving it and saying, oh, I'll send it tomorrow, right? I know many of you live on social media, so do I. What you generate there is like want to be shared now. What's the point? Otherwise, most of you probably don't use Facebook because all of you like real-time interaction, so you would use Instagram or something like that, or Snapchat. But the world has become that everything needs to be real-time, and why cannot it be done in other industries? Absolutely, it can be, and this is what matures the automation process. Now, this is a if you carefully look at this picture, and this will actually, if you fold this picture on top of each other, it will become a circle. And automation, you learn from automation, you go back to analytics and continue this cycle, so you are always growing the business. These are the 4 pillars of big data, of the digital transformation, and big data analytics is the biggest component of it. So how does one define big data? You may have heard a lot about it. You may have read like papers and papers, but I tell you, after this slide, you will say that all those definitions are wrong, because that's what it is. This is a story from Panchtantra. Most of you should know this. If not, you should really read it. This is about 6 blind people trying to describe an elephant, and they describe the elephant based on what part of the body they touch and what they know of something else. So, like, you know, they say it's a snake, it's a brush, it's a log, it's a drum, it's a fan, it's a spear. Now look, this story was written in 300 BC, and we are still like we haven't still fully understood it. But if you look in the same context, how people define big data, that's a first definition. You can read like 100 papers and they will tell you big data is about lots of data. Right. Second, nowadays there is a lot of buzz happening on calling data lakes. Then you can see that there will be people who will say, oh, it's about 3 V's, 4 V's, 5 V's, 32 V's, volume, velocity. Volume means large volume, velocity means real time, right? And then if you want to get very smart, you can say it's about these technologies like Hadoop, Storm, Hive, Kafka. And you want to get even more smarter, then you can say it's about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and today's big word is about deep learning, right? And then if you really don't want to understand, then you can call it a buzzword. Now, these are nothing but these pieces of the elephant that we are talking about, and these are all parts of the puzzle, not big data by itself. So how do I define big data? I define big data that it's about all the data. So whether it's a historical data, the current data, the future data that we don't know yet, and if we can actually pipeline the data of any kind, that means structured data that we hear right from the databases, or unstructured data means all the things that we write on Twitter and Facebook, which may or may not have correct English on it, or any other language for that matter, and or scribbled your notes. And then semi-structured data like email, which has to and form, which is probably organized, and then the content is not very well organized, and PDF files and audio files and video files. And the data can be anywhere. I don't really need to have everything on my laptop, right, to analyze. So all kinds of data that we can pipeline and leverage emerging technologies to and leverage the complete analytics value chain. I don't want to do everything deep learning, AI, ML. I could do simple visual analytics to show the value in the data, right? My goal with big data analytics is to find these hidden inefficiencies so I can grow the value of the business. So in a very simple term, big data is a paradigm shift, and paradigm shift is about looking at all the data to remove hidden inefficiencies in your business so you grow your business and be resilient. So that's why it is the foundation of digital transformation. Right. So what are the things? There are three things that happen, right? One is the paradigm shift. Second, you have to be very good at pattern recognition. And the third important point is that you always think of stakeholder value. This is a picture near Dehradun. If I don't know how clear it is on the screen there, but if you look, there is some construction work happening in the hill, and there are villagers who cross this river almost, and it's a hilly river, so a lot of workers cross this river by just going through the river, and it's very cold. In the picture it may not look that wide, but these villagers are so smart that they can look at the stone in the water and put their foot and cross, and evening when they come, that stone may not even be there. So they have become very good at recognizing the layout of the stones and leverage them to cross the river to reach to their destinations. That power of pattern recognition is needed when we are talking about data. Now there is one person who's really the master of it, and I hope you will recognize it when I show you this slide, right? And you should all learn from it. That is, you may have heard of this, right? Suksham Roop Dhari Sinhi Dikhava, Vikat Roop Dhari Lank Jarava, Bhim Roop Dhari Asur Sangare, Sita Ram Ji Ke Kaas Saware. This Chaupai from Hanuman Chalisa is the masterpiece in terms of how you transform yourself, right? None of us can actually become very small or very big, as it says, but how do you tackle the blockers in your life? That is the avatar you are taking, and your stakeholder value in this case, in his case, Hanumanji's case, was the job for Ram and Sita, right? To find Sita for Ram. That was his stakeholder value. But any blocker that came on the way, he took a different kind of avatar, transformed himself to address that challenge, and moved on to go to his destination. Now, most of us in India, we sing this forever, but we never analyze. We never actually implement it in our life, and that's where we have a challenge. So take this message if you can and transform whatever you are trying to do, and you will be pretty successful in it. That's why I put this picture here, blockers, the avatar you take, then you transform, right? So what does avatar means? So avatar, of course, in all the context of India in the Sanatan Dham, you can talk about it, but I modify the definition here. It's about always versatile, adaptable, transformative, agile, and resilient, right? It doesn't matter what phase of life you are in, you have to be versatile. You have to adapt and adapt fast, right? That's why agile is there. And transform yourself and be resilient, because otherwise, if you're not resilient, you can't really do anything. So avatar talent implies the always versatile, adaptable, transformative, agile, and resilient. Right, and that requires what I call the innopreneurial mindset. It's a combination of a word I coined as a combination of innovator and entrepreneur, because lots of innovators are there and entrepreneurs are there, but they kind of never come together. And at the pace at which emerging technologies are taking place, you have to really keep up with that. And the only way you can do that is when you combine the skills and the knowledge of being an innovator and an entrepreneur together, right? And that's what I call Career 4.0. You can read this. This magazine should be available in India because it's published out of the Dehradun. So I think it's a UGC authorized magazine. Why do we need this mindset? If you look at some of these technologies that we need to really tame, right? Big data, I talked to you, AI, ML, software-defined networks, IoTs, Internet of Things, industrial Internet of Things, the edge computing, the fog computing, the next generation of communication technology that's coming is 5G. Then we are all talking about real time, so real time streaming. In fact, you're listening to this through real time now, right? Then the whole encryption technologies that are coming. The most important that is like going to take place as it becomes more and more accessible is what I call immersive reality. This is a combination of virtual reality, augmented reality. What does that mean? Take an example that I could actually sit here, move my hand, and I could probably open a box in Mumbai, right? A physical box in Mumbai. Is it possible? Probably in another five years, easily. And there are already experiments going on these kind of things, so that I can take a spanner in my hand and try to open a physical spanner is lifted at a field, which could actually help open some kind of a bolt in somewhere. So these people are trying these things because that immersive reality sits on the foundation from big data to all the way to blockchain. And then, of course, as the things become complex, quantum computing will start playing. And since, as I said, my background is quantum, and I think world is changing towards it, and eventually we will have powerful quantum computers and the problem defined for that. So these are maybe quantum computing is a futuristic area, but it's already here. So if we don't learn, we don't transform, how do we play in that space? Now, once you have learned to tame these things, all these things looks very complex, but at the end of the day, things have to become simple. And that's why you leverage an approach that is simple, that is simplify the data ingestion to creating the insights, right? You will have to mash up data silos, be agile in terms of leveraging technology, right? And as a business, as an organization, there is always pressure on cost, so reduce the total cost of ownership. And you should never be tied down to one technology, like, right? So technology agnostic. This is what I call the smart approach, because after all that complexity of technology, if you can't really do things in a simple way, then you're not going to be successful. And if you think in that way, the smart way, then you can actually do that. As I said, always stakeholder value is important. So after you apply a smart approach, and this is an article we wrote for oil and gas industry, the amount of savings or the economic value, as I said, everything we do has to have some value, and economic value is the most important part. This is a study of thousands of PDF files, unstructured data, and what we were able to show them that they have kind of roughly lost about $200 million a year during this process. But this economic value can be measured in many ways: NPV, cost, revenue, efficiency, right, effectiveness. There are many other parameters, but in financial terms, these values are very, very important. So anything you do has to relate to that. Now, I just gave you almost the summary here is that once you leverage the first pillar of big data, analytics, leverage the new science through the smart approach, leverage the new emerging technology, the computing paradigm, you can transform any industry. This is just an example of oil and gas industry, that what I'm focused on now, but in the past I've worked in other industries as well. So you have to think innovation, science, computing, ecosystem, and ecosystem is when your entrepreneurship skill sets come into play. And this is how one should really think about career as well. Many of these things are published. You can find some of them. These books are not mine, they're somebody else's. You can always download them. But what I basically covered today is the avatar talent impacts the digital transformation. It helps generating the economic value, and it actually sets the path forward. So think about it. And I think with that, I should really thank you, and probably open for Q&A if there is time.
So thank you. It was an extremely interesting and passionate presentation, and it's my personal interest on AI. So, sir, a few questions which students have asked through the chat box, that how AI can play vital role in COVID situation, like how they AI we can take help of artificial intelligence to solve the COVID situation.
So first thing to understand what AI is, right? We use this term very loosely, and that's I think a biggest problem. It is not one thing, right? I give an analogy. Um, do we ever say that we are eating chemistry, we are wearing chemistry, or we are using chemistry to clean the kitchen, right? So AI is a subject.
Yes.
Its application is what is important.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not
Right.
one technology, and this is my pet message, that don't go AI as one thing. There is nothing called AI. It is just a subject. It is mimicking human intelligence. That's it. And now human intelligence could be many things for many people, right? Somebody is a musician, somebody is a scientist, somebody is a engineer, right? Somebody is a doctor. They are using their intelligence for a very specific purpose. So there
Yes,
is.
sir.
So how do we leverage the application? Which applications of artificial intelligence? What areas that we can do, whether it's COVID or any other disruptive forces, is to look at comprehensively anything, right? Data. And
Yes.
and I think COVID, people are building these models. You can see none of the models have actually predicted anything good. It's all already creating fear in people, right? The question would be, if we had a comprehensive data of how people are impacting, what their symptoms are, what their genetic mix is, or what their environmental mix is. If you look at it at a holistic picture and that analyze the data in a holistic manner, then you can say, okay, this is the treatment we could give, or this is the precautionary measures that we can do in this area. Now everybody has a mask, everybody is on this. Does it need to be, right? We all knew initially that it affects the senior citizens more. They could have done that part first, right? So the thing is, artificial intelligence algorithms that are needed, one has to first, number one, they have to think of the problem in a holistic manner, not in a linear manner. The moment you think of a linear, then you have missed out so many things,
Yes.
right? It's like the elephant picture I show. You only saw one part of it. If I don't go behind the elephant, I don't know whether it's something or not. So,
Yes.
right, and that's why most of the models have failed in predicting both the deaths and the infection rate, right?
Sir, I am working as a research coordinator for my institute. So, sir, I just want to ask you one question from my end, that which particular topic in which current area students should opt for the project, like final year project, which will be beneficial for them also, and as well as maybe it will attract more companies so that they will get the more job opportunity or they can start their own startup. So on which particular topic they should start working on?
I two things in this context. I always say, I think a month, 2 months back or 3 months back, I was in India speaking at Narsi Monji as well. And I told the students that work on the projects that are important for national interest, right? Because there is enough data. It's fragmented, true, but there is enough data in India because the scale of data is always big, right? Whether it's agriculture, okay, you may not impact agriculture of India per se, but you could certainly impact agriculture of Maharashtra, right? And Maharashtra also, if you think of it, even if you take a state, you can divide it into various whatever geographical regions, because not a whole state is similar. So there is enough to compare and contrast the data.
Okay.
Right. So agriculture is there, healthcare is there, housing is there, right? Of course, education is there. As I told the students that what is the product of your university? And they said, degrees. I said, degree is not a product,
Yes.
right? The product
Yeah.
are the students. So how do you improve the quality of the students? That itself,
Yes.
they should be analyzing the data, right? So the thing is, look at the five or whatever the interest of the government is, and then automatically it fits into the whole ecosystem, right? And there, India has absolutely agriculture, healthcare, housing, education, right? And of course, the biggest, I see it what I call infrastructure doomsday happening, going to happen someday, because the water is a problem,
So,
right?
sir, related to your, yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yes, sir, please
Right?
continue.
Nobody analyzes, I don't think anybody analyzes that all the construction that we have done and we have stopped the water from going into the ground, the rainwater, what's the impact of it? It may be some PWD guys might have done something, but not really done by society. And so, you see how what happens when the floods come. So where is the modeling of it? Right? When it's not flooded, that's a time to do the modeling as to saying, if I were to pour this much water, what will happen? And like like the weather channel, weather modeling or climate change, but we are not doing that in infrastructure modeling at all in India.
Right. Sir, related to your answers only, um, when you go for hiring or for interviewing to another colleges, or maybe you are hiring for people for your own company, what all qualities you look into them? Like they should be expert in what?
So as you talked about my career a little bit, and as I showed my slide, I if I go by that definition of looking at something I'm expert at, then I think it will be very difficult. I would not have been any of those places. Right. I've been lucky also, like I've never typically given any job interviews and never applied for jobs. Right. But that happens to be just luck, I guess. Or as I say, it's a blessing from the Lord, right? Krishna, right? So, but the thing is, if you decide to go somewhere, how are you presenting yourself, right? What have you done education wise, not education in the sense of degree, about the subject, what you're interested in, what knowledge have you gained by yourself? No teacher can provide everything, right? My PhD advisor gave me training in how to do solve through quantum mechanics, but only education he gave me, the real life was that you work on this thesis work and you have to do something else to get the actual thesis, and that will not be part of the thesis. So he wired me wrong in the sense you do multiple things. Now that message is what I took forward. I didn't take forward that my chlorophyll thesis. I took my message that I can do multiple things, and that's why it resulted in worked in about 8 or 9 different fields of science, published in them at the same time, and then moved on to technology and this. So what I'm looking for people is the aptitude to adapt and transform. They should not, like, somebody will say, oh, I have done mechanical engineering, I will only do that. Then that person is not very valuable to me, right? Because tomorrow mechanical engineering will transform, and if you are stuck in your simple modeling, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right, so adaptability and nature to transform is very, very important. On the question of hiring, yes, I am hiring. I'll be hiring in India pretty soon. My a lot. I don't want to quote a number right now, but we are hiring in Bangalore. So right now the process is going on. We are hiring in, say, cloud technology, some experience. We are hiring in data science, some of the programming languages, Java, C++, C Sharp, traditional ones. And we are hiring very young generation because some of the things that we want to do are in the areas of computer vision, right? Of course, traditional data science on various problems. But then since we are a oil and gas industry, we do a lot of work in geophysics and geosciences that requires multiple talents. So we have a center in Bangalore, and we are hiring there. And over the next few months, you will hear more about it in a more official way.
Okay, sir. So last question from my end. As you have played many roles in your life, like author and technologist, scientist, startup, so many things you have done in your life. From whom you have got your best career advice and which you will always remember in your life? Would you like to share with audience?
That's a tough one.
Sir, please.
As I said, there are only few people that credit goes more in that sense. One is, of course, my mom. Right. We are six brothers and sisters. She's not. She's like not high. She's high school pass only, but all of us are highly educated. All my siblings are a double masters, double PhD, whatever. Right. Multiple degrees. So are our spouses. So she always encouraged about education, learning, things like that, and even today she does that, right? Second is my PhD advisor because he wired me wrong, so to say. And then, of course, I think I the reason I put that Hanuman Chalisa thing, uh, I have built all my career based on that, the whole of Hanuman Chalisa. There are
Okay.
every aspect of life is there. Uh, Only if you know how to interpret it, and so I give a different lecture on that kind of how career with Hanuman Chalisa, and it's very simple, right? And that is my message because you always look outside, you don't look inside, right? If you
Yes.
look inside, what's the point? You already know that subject, right? And as I've been teaching, when I finished my MBA, I started teaching management classes. I'm a chemistry PhD, but the day I finished my MBA, I became a professor in management school, right? I had interest in cybersecurity, so I became a senior fellow of cybersecurity, right? It's a what your interest is. I currently I do a job that is my hobby, right? Build people, that's my strength, right? All my team members are heading somewhere, uh, analytics team elsewhere. So that's you know what your strengths are. You play on the strengths, and whatever your weaknesses are, you gain that knowledge and experience by either teaching, by either doing something on your own time, right? So most of these kids may not like it, but I rarely watch TV. I don't watch any movies, right? I don't watch any TV shows. So so usually you have the time. You can invest time in a good place, or you can invest watching some crappy shows on the TV, right?
So you
Uh,
don't watch movies?
no, I don't watch any movies.
Okay. That's nice.
Right. No,
Thank you so.
because half of those movies are, of course, people will say it's entertainment value, but for me, that's I personally feel they are brain dumping value, right?
Okay.
So that's my personal view, of course. But I think you have limited time in the day. You do what is best for you, and that's the thing. So that's my career advice is do what you like, be passionate about it, learn, don't wait for somebody else to teach you, uh, even if whatever your background could be, and eventually you will reach there. Like for example, I left academic jobs, went to become a Unix administrator. Think of it, from an assistant professor to Unix. But in about
Yeah.
7 or 8 years, I became head of R&D. So, right, and I had no godfather. So one can do it if they want to do it. The most challenge is that whether you want to transform.
Yes, yes. Ready to accept the change. That's it. Thank you, sir. It was really a nice journey, and you have shared your real-time experience with us. And on a very short notice, you have given us confirmation. So, on behalf of Shan Anchor Kutchi Engineering College, sir, I have a small token of appreciation here
Thank
for you. Please
thank
accept it with our sincere thanks. And
thank you.
a special vote of thanks for Kirit, sir, because due to Kirit sir only, sir, we were able to connect with you, and you were so humble that first talk only you have accepted our request. So I'll request Kirit sir, can you please come online?
Oh, sure, definitely.
Yeah,
No,
thank you, sir.
yeah,
Thank you so much. It was really a great session. And AI, cybersecurity, and these are my personal favorite topics, so I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
and one thing I tell you about Dr. Priyadarshi is like he is so modest,
Yeah,
and I know COVID is not good, but that's the only reason we got him. He's literally travels the world. I
yes,
always joke with him that when do you see your wife and your daughter? And I'm amazed. Like literally today he'll be in Dubai, tomorrow he'll be in Malaysia, day after tomorrow he'll be in Australia, fourth day he'll be back in Hawaii side somewhere or West Coast. Fifth day he will just stop by for a day to see his daughter and his wife and everyone. And then again in next day or two he will leave to go to South America, Europe, Middle East, everywhere. So he's hardly ever in town. Um, but one thing I'll tell you, the minute I called him and I said, Satyam bhai, we are doing this webinar and like you to come and speak. And he says, definitely. He did not even had to think even 1 second,
yes,
even for date and time. And I said, Kirit bhai, we'll make it happen. Don't worry about it. So I really, really want to thank Dr. Priyadarshi. The amount of knowledge he has, amount of skills he has, amount of uh, different hats he has been wearing. He has been the TIE president. He has been a member of the international TIE now. TIE is the Indian Entrepreneurs Group. He is part of IIT. With all these things to make the time for us and to kind of really help students and young students, that's his passion. He does it frequently, many times. Anytime he goes, as he mentioned, he went to even NM College in Mumbai. So he's really passionate about it. I know he was in academics before. He has moved to the industry, but his heart is still academics. And Satyam bhai, thank you very much. The information you gave is really valuable for the students, and everybody is going to benefit. So, and one mistake you did, you left your email ID at the end. So I'm sure you're going to get lots of emails. So that's the
Now,
only thing I can tell you.
anytime anybody wants to connect, LinkedIn is the best way for me because that way I can relate. Or otherwise, too many email messages come or something. But anytime I'm happy to help any day. Thank you, Kirit bhai. See you soon someday.
No,
Thank you.
thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
thank you.
Bye now.
Yeah, bye. Dear audience, I have shared feedback link in the chat box. So please click it and fill it so that you can get the e-certificate in your mailbox. Thank you, Satyam sir, on a very personal note. And Kirit sir, thank you so much. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
We have scheduled few webinars tomorrow also. Please all check the schedule and meeting you all tomorrow at the same time. We have Namrata ma'am scheduled, Dr. Amaya Tripathi sir's webinar is scheduled, and as well as our own students webinar is scheduled. So looking forward to meet you all tomorrow. Bye everyone, take care.